Last night we saw Donald Trump announce some of the most unlawful actions of his administration and the most unlawful actions of any president in American history. Of course, I am talking about his decision to completely neglect and move past a court order telling him to stop the dangerous and wrongful deportations he was carrying out, and the other being his decision that he thinks he can void Joe Biden's pardons. But in that voiding of pardons was the implication and the outright statement that he would be going after the January 6th Select Committee who held him accountable. And one of its members, Adam Kinzinger, is expectedly hitting back at Donald Trump, and it makes him furious. And we are going to get into all of that. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we hear from Adam Kinzinger, I quickly want to read the post Trump made and then hear his response. The post from Trump read, "The pardons that sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by autopen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing of them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the unselect committee who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people should fully understand they are subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden." Now let's hear the response from Adam Kinzinger.
One of those pardoned, although he didn't ask for it preemptively, for former member of the January 6th Select Committee, Republican former Congressman Adam Kinzinger. So again, you were pardoned. You didn't ask for a pardon. It was preemptive just in case Trump's Justice Department goes after you and other members of the January 6th Committee. What was your reaction when you saw Trump's post last night declaring your preemptive pardon void and vacant?
Well, first off, I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to distract from, because that's what all this is, always a distraction to try to get people's attention, or maybe he hasn't felt like he's gotten enough attention. But look, Jake, it's like, bring it on. Like, honestly, so, we had an election. I fought against Donald Trump. I wanted Kamala Harris to win. January 6th was a big thing, but America made a different choice. Fine. I'm ready to move on. I'm like, look, we made it very clear what happened on January 6th. America made a decision. There is one person that's obsessed about the 6th because he still has been basically deemed guilty in the court of public opinion, and that's Donald Trump, and he can't handle it. He obsesses about it. So my reaction to him is like, you know what? Then bring it. Like, stop talking about it. Stop being all verbose. Stop pretending like you're tough. Bring the charges then if you really want to do it, because we will crush you in court, and it'll make me 3 times more effective against you. Look, honestly, Jake, I'm ready to move on too. But if he wants to keep bringing it up, bring it up or be quiet. That's how I feel.
I want you to take a listen to what President Trump said about the pardons on Air Force One last night.
It's not my decision. That'll be up to a court. But I would say that they're null and void, because I'm sure Biden didn't have any idea that it was taking place.
Could you hear that okay? I can read that too if you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think Trump's move to say the pardon in his view is void is because he wants to investigate the January 6th committee members? Or do you think this is more about trying to reopen a discussion about President Biden's mental acuity, which, of course, could also serve, as you say, as a distraction?
It's probably a little of both. Look, I think he's obsessed with January 6th, and there's no doubt if he could break the law and come after us, he would. And, again, we'd crush him in the court of law. But I also think, yes, look, he'll give, when he had Zelensky in the Oval Office, he was going after Joe Biden. This guy obsesses about Joe Biden because the only time he ran against him, Joe Biden beat him, and that bothers him. And so yes, I think it's constantly trying to change people's view on Joe Biden because he gets stuck. I mean, he's trying to negotiate a solution to the biggest war in Europe, but the guy is obsessed with this vengeance. I mean, Donald Trump, you won. At what point are you like, yeah, I won. I'm vindicated. I feel vindicated. But he can't. He's a small man that just continues to get angry, and it's like, fine, bring it on then.
Here's some news for you that you probably don't know. President Trump just posted on Truth Social that he is ending the U.S. Secret Service protection for two of President Biden's kids, President Biden's son Hunter and his daughter Ashley. What's your reaction to that?
It's just childish. I mean, he did it for John Bolton, Mike Pompeo. This is just a way for vengeance. And by the way, Pompeo was a big supporter of Donald Trump. This is dangerous. Somebody's going to get hurt. And when they get hurt, it's going to blow back on Trump. And, you know, look, I hope the next president doesn't do this to Donald Trump. And I mean that, and his family. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do now. He's a very dangerous precedent. And again, it's just, this is what happens when you put a 78-year-old toddler in the White House, unfortunately.
As you would expect, Adam Kinzinger is unafraid, and he's hitting back at Donald Trump. He is taking the approach to this that I absolutely love. He's not running scared. We would never think that that's what Adam Kinzinger would do. He's saying, bring it on. Let's not just go to court over this. Adam Kinzinger has plenty of resources to do so, but let's do it out in the court of public opinion. Tell me the law I broke when we were holding you accountable for breaking the law, Donald. Tell me the law I broke when we were investigating the 1,500 violent criminals that you ended up pardoning. Tell me which law I broke standing up for democracy. Let's talk about this. I feel like we far too quickly moved on from the fact that, I'll say it again, Donald Trump pardoned 1,500 violent insurrectionists. There's so much stuff going on. I understand that. But how did we move past this? Donald Trump is talking about keeping America safe by deporting people who he calls criminals, even though some of them are just regular, law-abiding, lawful, permanent residents of the United States with documentation to prove it. Yet Donald Trump round them up on a plane and shipped them to a country they've never been to at the same time that he let out 1,500 violent cop-beating insurrectionists? You got to be kidding me. Let's execute. Let's debate. Let's talk about this in the court of public opinion. I'm glad Adam Kinzinger is bringing attention to the lawlessness of the Trump administration and the political persecution that they are focused on, rather than caring about egg prices, gas prices, or the price of your rent. This is what we should be hammering home, and I'm glad Adam Kinzinger is doing it. I'm also glad we saw a little bit of pushback, much more than finally we got out of the rest of today, from Ari Melber when he gave a great breakdown of what Donald Trump is trying to do, something we've been talking about, breaking the law, breaking down our government. And I want to take a look at what he had to say right here.
It's this story on the Trump administration newly testing the power of the courts, sometimes appearing to openly defy them, facing legal, nonpartisan, and liberal criticism because of the move here over the weekend to go forward with deportations despite what appeared to be clear orders from a federal judge. This clash right now, and I'm going to walk you through it, it does raise the prospect of the Trump administration deliberately defying court orders. Now, that claim itself is part of the dispute. We're going to go through this with the available facts, and as always, reporting everything we know from all sides so you can make up your own mind. But there are valid questions here about whether this is now, and I'm going to say it plainly, an intentional autocratic effort by the Trump administration to break the law and then violate judicial orders that enforce the law they are accused of, and in some cases, according to judicial findings, having been found to have broken. Now, that prospect goes farther than most presidencies in the modern era. You could go back to Nixon for very negative examples where we had a similar pattern. In fact, it goes farther than Donald Trump's first term, which, whatever you think of the politics or the ethics or the rhetoric or the leadership of that first term, we did not see in the main, on a regular basis, what we're seeing here in this new clash from President Trump, 45th President of the United States, first term. So I can measurably show you with evidence why this is concerning, extreme, radical, and potentially lawless. But what we're going to do right now with our report is just go through first the facts we have on this very big controversy. It began with the weekend clash over immigration powers, the administration deporting hundreds of migrants on an emergency basis without any apparent due process. That's based on what we know that came out of a very rushed, controversial process. And again, if we learn more about possible improvements or enhancements to that, we'll tell you. But right now, that's what we know. The administration basically alleged or said these individuals were gang members and then invoked a wartime law, the Alien Enemies Act, And then a judge halted those planned deportations, I should say, under that plan. Now, let me be very clear with you. That kind of judicial order is the final word until and unless a higher court intervenes. That's the end of it. And as I said, in the first term of the Trump administration, that's how these things went. You might remember the travel ban was halted, and then it was narrowed, and then parts of it went forward. All of that went through the process that I'm reporting for you, where courts rule and the administration and all of the many officials and agents involved in these type of things follow the law. And the law is what the last word came out of the courts. But now this administration, which has previously followed court orders and did so across the first term, has taken a very different tack, and we have evidence to believe it is not incompetence or a mistake, which, while a big deal, would play out differently, but that it's intentional. This time, despite the order, those planned deportations that had supposed to have been halted went forward, and that plane took off.
President Trump has invoked a wartime law known as the Alien Enemies Act
to deport suspected members of a Venezuelan gang.
A federal judge immediately blocked the president's proclamation.
He ordered the planes deporting Venezuelans to immediately return to America.
The White House is disregarding a judge's ruling on deportations, claiming in this case the court has no authority in the matter,
setting up a potential constitutional challenge.
The migrants flown from Texas to El Salvador, you can see them getting off the plane where they were taken into custody. This video was shared by an administration that is seen as allied with the Trump administration, the leaders of El Salvador. The judge had ruled to stop what you see happen there. And as for the claim by Trump's lawyers that he had war powers that could supersede the normal way these things work, that was invalid because the U.S. was not at war, the judge noted. So the move violates the plain text of the Alien Enemies Act.
This is one of the best explanations that I have heard of what Donald Trump is trying to accomplish. And we always get those from Ari Melber, but this was particularly great. It's the reason why I wanted to play so much of that clip. It is a step-by-step process that Donald Trump is taking to get some groups to approve of the lawless action he's taking based on the larger goal that he seems after, right? Donald Trump is presenting this as an idea of protecting Americans from criminals, and the courts are getting in the way. That's how Donald Trump wants it to be presented. That's, of course, not the truth. Donald Trump ultimately does not want to keep Americans safe. Again, wouldn't let those violent criminals, those insurrectionists out if he did. He wants to defy the courts with public approval. And he thinks if he can get public buy-in for him defying the courts in order to save America, he thinks he can do it wherever he wants. And that's what we have to push back against. That's the opinion we have to shape. It's what we're going to talk about every single day on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.